First thing I want to bring your attention to is when we graph from now on, okay? I know usually you guys are used to an X and a Y axes. You will now notice the X-axis is in radians. Everyone see that down below here? The X-axis when we graph sine and cosine is all in radian value. Okay, radian. It doesn't go by ones anymore. We know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and negatives. It goes by radians, positive and negative. All right, so that's first what I wanted to bring your attention to, positive and negative radians. Okay, first one we're going to graph all together here today is the sine curve. Sine curve. And what you guys are going to do is you're going to graph it from 0 to 2 pi, and then I'll tell you what's happening on the left side. So what I need you to do right now is go to your calculators because you're going to find the value. So we're going to fill in this chart from 0 to 2 pi or 0 to 360. So we're doing sine. So sine of 0. What do you got for me in your calculator? Sine of 0 is 0. Yep. Sine of 30 now. And I'm not talking unit circle anymore. That was in the last unit. I don't want 1/2, even though it's what, 1/2, right? 0.5, 1/2. Yep. 60, I don't want radical 3 over 2. I know we did that last unit, but what? Just give me a decimal or two. 1 point. Sorry, that's coming up. 0.87. Okay, so 0.87. How about sine of 90? 1. Yep. And then can you guys do me a favor and fill in the rest for me? Okay. And then we'll graph it together. And when you're done, just take a look up here, make sure our values all match. So are we all set to graph together? All right, at 0, what was the y coordinate? 0. So our graph is going to start at, sine's going to start at 0, 0. And these go by 30 degrees, just so everyone knows. Every tick mark is 30 degrees here. Okay, so at 30 degrees it was 1/2. At 60 degrees, 0.87. At 90, 1. Are you guys comfortable graphing the rest here after 1? So next one at 120 degrees, 0.87. Back to 1/2. Little repetition here, huh? Okay, everyone's looking good. Okay, looks good. All right, this is called, before we connect them, a sine curve. All right, not a sine peaks and valleys, mountain ranges. It is a sine curve. So a smooth curve connecting them now. All right, I want to introduce you. There's a full sine curve right there. Full sine curve, everyone, right there. Full sine curve. That's what one full curve goes. What would happen if we kept graphing it past 2 pi? It would start repeating itself. All right, it would start going up and then back down and then back to 0. Okay, but this right here is one full sine curve. How high does it go? Goes up to what? 1. How low does it go? Down to -1. Okay, I'll get to the other half of it in a second. It does repeat itself, so I'm assuming most of you guys could visualize what it looks like, but I'll get to that in a second. I want to introduce 3 vocabulary terms to you right now. Well, actually 2. You know range already, but amplitude. Amplitude is the height of the graph. How high did it go? You just told me. How high does it go? 1. So we say the amplitude is 1. Period. Ready? Period. That is how long on the x-axis it takes to make one full curve before it starts repeating. So how far we went from 0 to what on the x-axis before we knew it was going to start repeating again? 0 to what? 0 to 2 pi. Okay? So it takes 2 pi on the x-axis for the period for it to start repeating itself. And for you guys, over the next course of the next 2 days, the period's always going to be 2 pi. That's how long it takes to repeat itself. And then the range. The range are my what values from 11th grade? Y values. So tell me something about the Y values, because it's not all real numbers. That's for darn sure. What can you tell me about the Y values? Mary, got something for me? Goes from what to what? 1 to -1. Does it include 1? Does it include -1? Okay, so you guys, I don't know, how'd you do it last? I do the brackets like this. Is this something you're familiar with? I could also write it as an inequality, but I'll stick with that. Okay. Okay, what would happen on the other side? It's going to start repeating itself again. All right, so quickly, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to graph all the points in. I'm just going to graph the ones I need. So it would go down to -1, back to 0, up to 1, back to 0. Okay, so that's how it would look on the other side. Okay, just starts repeating again. Okay, just starts repeating. Anything you're intrigued about or want to ask about our sine curve here? Because I am not going to have you graph all those points every single time. We don't need to. We do not need to graph all those points every time. I am only going to graph what I'm going to call with you guys the key values. Where does sine start? Where do we start this graph at? Starts at? Where did it start? At 0. Okay, starts at 0. Then it travels up to, how high does it go? 1, which we'll call the max. There's the second key value. Then where'd it go down to? Oh, even before then. It went back down to 0. So starts at 0, goes to its max, back to 0, then where? Down to -1. If that's the max, that'll be the minimum, and then where'd it end up? Okay, 5 key values. That's all I'm graphing from now on. 5 key values. 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. Hey, wait, whoa! This looks starting to seem familiar here. What's pi over 2 in degrees? 90. Pi? 180. Anybody seen where this is coming from here? Last unit, 90, 180. What's 3 pi over 2? 270. And then 2 pi? 360. That's the only ones I'm going to have you graph from now on. All right? Only ones I'm going to have you graph. Okay, the next one. Watch how easy this is going to become now. No calculator needed. What is the difference between this graph and the one we just graphed? Only difference. It's a major difference. Four sine x. What's the difference between that graph versus the one I just had you do? What did I put in front? I'm not getting crazy here. What did I just put in front? A 4. All right. All I did was put a 4 in front. Now, all that means, with that number out in front, what did my sine graph on the previous one? It went up to what and down to what? Went up to 1 and down to -1. Now it's going to go up to 4 and down to -4. That's what happens with that number out in front. Okay, it tells you how high and how low it's going to go. All right, watch how quickly this is going to be to graph. Because did I provide you guys with a chart? No. All right, I don't need you to fill in a chart. Ready? Where does sine start? Oh boy. Where does sine start? Where does sine start? At 0. So this one's also going to start at 0. Then it travels up to where usually? It travels from 0 to its maximum. We already said because there's a 4 out in front, what's the new maximum on this one? 4. So at pi over 2, it's going to be at 4. Yep. Then it travels back down to then where? Minimum, which now what's our new minimum? Okay, look how we, as long as we know the pattern, we're all set to go. And then where does it always end? There you go. Those are the only values, the key values we need to graph now. Starts at 0, goes to the minimum, back at 0, minimum, 0. Questions there? Yes, Ashley, go.
If you're graphing it and you don't pass through like the other points that it goes past through.
I'm only looking for those values. What do you mean, like the one, like the ones in between here?
Yeah.
Don't care. I'm only looking for these, the values at these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 x values. That's it. Okay. Now look, good question. I'm not looking for the rest. Okay. Period. How long did it take to make one full curve here? 2 pi. That's probably not going to change until Monday's class. What's the range? I'm going to start asking you guys now here. Range. 14. Range?
Range would be 4
-4 to 4 doesn't include -4 and 4 because that's big if I put brackets or not, Ashley. Does it include 4 and -4? It does, yes. So -4 to 4. What is the difference between the max and the min values? The difference. Okay, so here we go. 16, little help. Do we have a 16?
Yeah, me.
Okay, hi Marissa, sorry. Ready? What's the max value?
4.
4. Difference means I'm going to 4 minus what's your minimum? So 4 minus a -4. So it's 8. Yep. Or I could have went to the graph and just did what? Counted. All right, the difference between them. Ooh. What quadrant or quadrants is sine positive? What quadrant or quadrants is sine positive? And you can use your knowledge from last unit. 16 again, Marissa? Sine's positive. Any other quadrants?
And the first.
And the first, yes. Now look, hey. You don't see it, but your graph tells you that too. First and second go from 0 to how many degrees? First and second quadrant. 0 to 180, right? 0 to 180. Everyone see it? Is it above or below? Positive. Everyone see it? From 0 to 180, it's above. Okay, where is this graph increasing? Over what intervals is it increasing? Okay. Let me get the highlighter out. Ready? Everyone agrees it's increasing right there. What's that interval on the x-axis? From what to what? 0 to, not 4. I'm looking on the x-axis. Where's it increasing? 0 to what? Pi over 2. Now, I can't say it increases right at 0 or right at pi over 2, so I am just going to put parentheses. 0, pi over 2. Because it's not actually increasing at 0 or at pi over 2. You're on the hook for the other place. Because there's another spot on this graph where it's increasing. On the x-axis. Where else here is this increasing? 6, when you're ready, where is it increasing? Yep. To what? There you go, right here, everyone. See it? 3 pi over 2 to 2 pi, in parentheses. Geez, this is a lot of parts, huh? What line splits the max and the min in half? So you got the max. Do you have that question or no? Yeah. Oh, sorry. On the next page. What line? Here's the min. Here's the max. Describe the line that splits it in half. What line is halfway in between those? The x-axis. Yes, the x-axis. All good. That was just sine. We still got to get to cosine. Yep. Okay, can you do the same thing for me, but now cosine on your calculator? So everyone, cosine is 0. What do you got for me? Ooh, starts at a different spot now, doesn't it? Doesn't start at 0, starts at 1. Yep. Cosine of 30. Yep, you guys know the deal now. And if you want, go ahead and try to graph the points now. 0, 1. You guys can graph all of them. I'm actually going to cheat and just graph in between. And you'll start seeing the U, cosine curve. Again, please make it look like a curve at the bottom, not a V. Okay. Good, looks good, looks good. Okay, amplitude, how high does it go? It goes up to 1, yep. Amplitude is 1, period. How long does it take to make one curve here on the x-axis? How long on the x-axis? All the way to what? 2 pi, yep. That's going to, again, not going to change for a couple days. And how about the range? 1 to -1. So it's got the same things as the sine curve, except it looks a little different, obviously. All right. And then what would happen if I graph the negative side? It would just start repeating again. 1, 2, 3, down the -1. Okay, let's start repeating again. Good? Okay, I want to do the same thing I did with sine. Let's find the pattern right now. Where does cosine start? Where does cosine start? Sine starts at 0. Cosine does not. Cosine starts at 1. Then, ready? Keep following the curve. Then it goes to where? Cosine starts at the max, or 1, and goes to where now? Pi over 2. What's that pi over 2? What's the point? 0. So it starts at its max, goes to 0, then goes to its minimum, then travels back to 0 and ends at its max. Okay, so cosine starts at its max, 0, min, and again, you guys will just, you're not going to memorize it, you'll just know it by doing so many of these graphs. Is there anything you want to ask about the cosine curve? Okay, I don't want you to graph yet. I just want to answer a few questions based off just the equation now. So notice I put a 1/2 in front. All right, so now hopefully we know how that affects the graph. If I put a 1/2 in front. What's the amplitude? 1/2. All right, instead of going up and down to 1, it's going to go up and down to 1/2 and -1/2. Period. How long do you think it's going to take? 2 pi. Okay, that's not changing. What's the minimum and the maximum value then? Okay, let's hear from 9. 8. 16.
-1/2 and +1/2.
Which is which?
The maximum value is 1/2.
Yep. All right, good. What's the range then? What's the range for 1/2 cosine x? 10. Yep. Yep. It's not going to go anywhere past those values. And what's the difference between the max and the min now? The difference between the max and the min. 20. What's the max? Difference, what am I doing? Minimum? Difference between them? Got your calculator too if you need to plug it into negative 1/2 minus a negative 1/2. Yep. Difference is 1. Okay, graph it without touching your calculator. Let's start getting this habit. It's a cosine curve. Where does cosine usually start? Oh, no, I don't want to hear that anymore. That's bad habit, and I understand it. Starts at its max. Think of it that way. All right, starts at its max. What's the max for this one? 1/2. So make sure we start at 1/2. Okay, then it goes to what? 0. Then it goes to minimum. What's the minimum value here? Look at this. Okay, then it goes back to 0 and ends at its max. Look at that. That's embarrassing. Try that again. This always gets me. Try that again. There we go. I think that better.
Does that make you feel better?
Yes, it does. Trust me, like it gets to me. Darn right. What quadrant is this graph negative in? I remember we're doing the cosine curve. So basically, negative means below the x-axis. So it looks like from here to there, it's negative, right? Below. So what's pi over 2 again? In degrees? Oh. Pi over 2? 90 to 3 pi over 2. 270. So from 90 to 270, what quadrants am I going through? 2n, 3. And again, you didn't need to use the graph for that. We could have used ASTC, right? And people could have easily told me 2 and 3. All right, I just made a mess out of this, but where is this graph decreasing? Decreasing. Can you find first, before you give me the values, can you find on here for me where it is decreasing? Ready? From here all the way down, right? It's decreasing there. So on the x-axis, that's from what to what? On the x-axis, that's from, on x-axis, not the y-axis, x-axis. 13? From what to what on the x-axis is this going down? Okay, what's this value? 0 to what? Pi. Everyone see that? From 0 to pi, and I'm putting it in not brackets, but parentheses, because it's not actually decreasing at those two spots. Okay, all good? I got one more graph, and then I'm going to watch you guys do this on your own. You all right, Marissa? What's up? Okay, feel better? Okay, good. I'm glad. Any issues? All right, last graph. Let's see if we can put all this together now. Sine or cosine curve? Sine. Sine curve. So now we're thinking where it starts, where does it go? If we flip back and forth, that's fine. The 2 shouldn't bother us. That means it's going to go up and down to what? Up to 2, down to negative 2. What bothers us right now that we haven't seen today? Is the negative out in front. Okay, the negative out in front may bother us, but I'll talk about it as we get to it. All right, where's sine start? Oh, look back if you need to. Where does sine always start? 0. Okay, so it's going to start there, guys. Okay, here's the changeup. Focus in. Look back if you need to. Starts at 0, then usually goes to what? The max, which for us would be 2, right? No. The negative sign comes into play now. The negative sign flips the graph. Okay, so usually, ready? We'd be going up to 2, I agree. But the negative flips it over the x-axis. Okay, that's the impact the negative has. It flips it. All the maxes get turned into mins. All the mins get turned into maxes. Where's it going back to now? 0. And I know at this point, usually it goes to its minimum. But the negative says, no, 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 you flip that. So what's my next point? At 3 pi over 2. 2. And where's it going to end? The negative has no effect on the zeros. The zeros stay zeros. So does everybody see it's my sine curve but flipped? I got one last question before I let you go on your own. Amplitude. What's the amplitude for this graph? Amplitude, any guesses? 2. Even though what number was out in front? -2. Amplitude can't be negative. It's like, hey, how high is that roller coaster going? Oh, it's about, I think it's about -50 feet high. That's not going to make any sense. Height can never be negative. Okay, so your amplitude, never negative. Okay, let's go get graphing on the next page. Got a ton of graphs to get through.